to their own name. Gragas who can disengage, keep that bulwark up. And then you have the poke Xayah, we have to assume. I'd imagine this isn't going to be the crit. So if AXIZ don't hit the engage well, there is a worry that Burning Core can just poke them out and use their range advantage well. They have so many things to throw at you. The kitchen sink has been torn out with the rest of it to be thrown at you. At this point, they're digging into the foundation, just throwing the brickwork around too. And I feel like Burning Core, if they do fall behind, which has been obviously a death knell for them in all of the games which it has happened in, this is going to go from bad to worse very quickly.
Well, I'll have to see if AXIZ are able to pick up the win this game and keep their slim playoff hopes alive. We're onto the rift now for AXIZ versus Burning Core. Burning Core just starting fairly defensively with their positioning, and AXIZ not overstepping either. Neither team wanting to make a mistake in this early game.
No, so we will, of course, be tracking what both these compositions will be looking to do in this game. We kind of said, okay, if AXIZ get ahead, they are so good at snowballing the game with this kind of composition. And if Vex gets ahead, the person you land on, because you got like 5 other ultimates, or like 4 other ultimates flying at them, they're going to die. You're going to get resets fairly easily. Yeah. But if you fall behind, you try and do the same thing, all you're doing is funneling into feathers. So we will track that and see how easy it is for AXIZ to pull off the combo and how Burning Core are dealing with this very cards on the table, we're coming at you comp.
As both bot lanes might be coming at each other. What is this? Come on, sort it out, someone do something, right? Not secured by Dicey. I'm not too sure what's going on. Actually going for the crash down here, but does get hooked up by Fujimoto. The ignite drop very, very early as well. The Rel can't move particularly quickly in these early levels as Sangchu forced to dash himself away. Where are we waiting on that hurt? Coming up soon. Fujimoto holding it for now, but we'll be able to get that lockdown onto Sangchu, and it's a lot of damage traded back, actually. Yuhi taking a tower shot, but priority in the bot lane already secured for Burning Core.
I mean, that was an absolute sitter for Fujimoto. You're sat there thinking, well, I can just cancel the crash down at level 1, and they do that. You don't get the Glacial after that point. Megaman now being focused on in the mid lane.
Trading some damage back, forced to flash away. Does get the fear onto Flawless, who's going to follow with the flash of his own. One more auto with the red buff burn. And it's first blood to Burning Core.
Bot lane does it all themselves. Mid lane takes Flawless coming in, but Megaman, for a player that has so often played the Rise and the Vex, to push in early and give some priority, over pushes this time. And in his very inaugural split, in his debut into the LJL, he was doing quite similar things on quite a lot of mages. He would struggle to survive early game, even back in the Seraphine meta when she was so hard to unroot from mid. And it seemed like he'd evolved past that, but just a little bit of those old flaws shining through sadly in this game.
And speaking of old flaws, Flawless, pretty nice.
Wait, is he that old?
Well,
he's been playing for a while, but
he's definitely a player that's been around, played in a couple of leagues, LTK, LJL, probably never heard from them. But the thing is, described back then by a lot of commentators as great hands, not really got that gameplay brain. Going for that 2 camp into that mid lane gank to secure the first blood, that feels like a play that's been made with his brain. So, good start for Flawless, picking up that Scuttle Crab as well. And this Graves is going to scale very, very well against the Hecarim as they both farm up. So, getting that first blood puts you in an even better spot.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this particular matchup, right? Is that Graves is not great in the jungle right now, but he's more than fine if you're against another champion that doesn't really want to do much. You just get to that point where you go through your first clear, you level up a couple of times, and suddenly you're clear. Camps don't exist. You know, you're very much on a similar vein to the Karthus, which he's also played, where all of these farming junglers just get to hoover up farm, get lots of resources, and in a region like the LJL where we don't fight early, you get a lot of passive benefit from that without having to put your team at risk.
So I'm seeing something a little bit weird here, Nymera. Yeah?
Yeah.
I'd appreciate it if you do me a little explainer-unio, okay?
Is this an item on Graves, perchance?
It is an item on Graves. Iron Spike Whip. Are we seeing a Gore Drinker here?
We can also be the Stridebreaker.
Okay.
The Gore Drinker, I think that against Heavy Dive, I think there's value in both. I'm just trying to theory craft this myself. I feel like if you tag a slow onto Vex or onto Samira, they die fairly quickly, actually. I have seen a bit of it myself. But what it also does, of course, getting the early Iron Spike Whip helps you clear out. It gets you a bit more HP to work around too. Ever since Crit Graves got a little bit Well, no, very much slaughtered.
We're finding a polite word.
I just like, no, where we got absolutely just shafted. It was
Rayfarki,
really difficult.
You have
That's a
no
lot of
mana.
damage.
The Ignite's been dropped down, heals up with that cast, but Toltu just needs a couple more auto attacks. Flash still available for the Gragas, but won't be forced to use it as the body slam is invested. And despite that all-in not going well for Rayfarki, still doing pretty well on CS.
Doing more than fine, and Toltu now wastes that combat summoner. There's a teleport to get back to lane from Rayfarki, so gets out with fairly preferential trade from what looked like quite severe kill threat at the start of it.
It's a rough moment indeed. 5.5 minutes on the clock, meaning that Dragon is currently live, and Dicey, the way that he's stancing in mid lane, has a lot of priority, so Flawless will be a little bit more able to start this one up than Swamp so far. Neither junglers hit 6 quite yet. Flawless still only level 4, so we need to do a little bit more farming until he's truly activated on this Grave. Swamp, though, could be looking for a bot lane gank.
Could be, has Ghost, but there's 4 summoners available from Burning Core. This is difficult to land, and as much as he's hanging around the corner, Graves is here too. If this turns into a 3v3, very Burning Core favored currently.
Yeah, itemization currently favoring Yuhi. Sanctuary forced her back early, so currently just sat on that Doran's Blade. It is the boots and the longsword for Yuhi. Both junglers making passing visits towards the bot side, but with the Burning Core bot lane just going to shove this wave out, they're going to rotate away, and I think that Drake is going to be that next focus.
And speaking of the boost and the longsword on Yuhi, that's not going to be going towards a lethality side. It's going to be the lethal tempo, so that is going to be crit. Crit Zyre was buffed on recent patches. For every point of crit, you do get more damage onto your E, of course. I mean, that was always the case, but basically Crit Zyre was buffed a little. I'm trying to remember the exact buff on it. Either way, crit now slightly better. It's more good, but it still can suffer in the early game. However, Burning Core, just by pressing the buttons pretty well and outplaying the laning phase, have found themselves quite an organic lead regardless of the champion builds they're going towards.
Yeah, I mean, that level 1, basically, you're kind of free to lane. After that, Sanctuary still behind in CS by about 13, which was equivalent to the amount of minions that he lost off of that forced reset. So the lead hasn't been getting any bigger for Burning Core, but maintaining it at this level is pretty good, I feel like, for Yuhi and Fujimoto, who I think that you could argue are potentially the weaker bot lane as a duo.
I think you very much could argue that. But we will track how, of course, that works into team fights, because that's what we're building up to. You can see the storm on the horizon and say, oh, look, that's going to be a 5v5 where everyone's pressing ultimates, and there's going to be a lot of bright, flashy graphics for us to look at for a small amount of time in this game before everyone absolutely has their HP bars demolished. So we have Herald spawning 2, Burning Core, they have vision around it, they have Graves on the top side of the map, but no one's very quickly starting it at this point. So again, this is very typical LJL early game. We don't really like to fight that much here. We had like there's one gank from Burning Core. It's like, wow, that's our early game done. See you at 20 minutes. We get to podcast after that point, and you should totally watch the LJL podcast that we do every Tuesday. We talk about the LJL.
That was clean. That was smooth.
Almost like we don't have in-game advertisements, but we do have plugs, and we do have Sanctuary being forced off of tower, and actually, credit to Yuhi and Fujimoto. That level 1 has snowballed into absolute control of this bot lane. They've been able to do with the wave exactly what they wanted to do, been able to arm wrestle resources away from Sanctuary.
But AXIZ have been able to pick up this Herald in trade. So Burning Core don't get to double dip on the early game objectives. It's not the Herald and that first Drake. And generally the gold, I feel like, is a little bit more useful in the early stages. We'll have to see where AXIZ want to put that one down to get the most efficiency out of it. Megamin just throwing up dice in the mid lane, who secured a pretty sizable CS advantage over the AXIZ mid laner, as Flawless going for a bit of a cheeky invade here.
He is, and remember the Vex ultimate is available. This has been a typical point where things go very bad when you play against Vex, where you're like, oh, I can go and invade, and you realize the Vex ultimate kind of means that they can be stuck under that turret. It just doesn't matter. They fly in and they punish you very heavily, but not going to be the case at that point. Flawless getting a camp steal away, has a lot of camps up himself, and Burning Core again, just very... It seems to be the word of the first 2 games, and I guess the jungle meta in general, just passively getting quite a lot of advantage, not really having to put himself out there to get ahead of the curve.
And I mean, that has to favour Burning Core as it stands right now, because they've got that scaling Graves pick, and the lanes are across the board going fine for them. And it's AXIZ with a bit more of a single carry focus composition, I feel, with just this Samira, I feel, is like the pure AD damage. Megamin obviously going to be a bit more on setup and not really in a position to carry.
I mean, the thing is, there isn't a huge tank on the side of Burning Core, so all of your base damages from stuff like the Hecarim and stuff too, it's going to be fine. And if that allows you to get a reset, even if it is on something like Gragas who's caught out, even though he can itemize fairly effectively against the lower damage from AXIZ, if it does come through, those resets aren't going to be a very happy time for the rest of Burning Core.
So Toltu actually not back towards Rayfarki's tower. Done a fair bit of damage to the Sejuani, but now that Flawless has joined the party, I think that damage number is going to increase a fair bit. No flash available for Toltu, and will just get taken out. That was pretty easy for Burning Core, honestly.
And a bit of a frustration ultimate maybe coming out from Toltu. Throws it and goes, I'm going to stun you and do some damage, and just sits there and goes like, wow, that did so little. Now I don't have an ultimate for the next fight of the game. Should we go and look for it? And the Sejuani top, as much as it is fun, and it has been doing okay in that laning phase, you can see how awkward it is to play out when you don't take that flash.
Swamp was just waiting for Dice to do a double distort in mid and then could have looked for an engage, but will not find it. Instead, just traversing the river, plying their time around the bottom side of the map. Still has that Herald for around about a minute, as Flawless is potentially caught out here. The Onslaught of Shadows going forward, but there are more Burning Core members than maybe AXIZ expected, and now Megamin and the jungler are caught out. Megamin forced to flash away, as Swamp is going to get taken out, and Dice just jumps on his head and takes him to town. Sanctuary starts to reset through, but the feathers get pulled back and slice him apart. That's a huge fight for Burning Core.
And it's not like there's a teleport available from Toltu, because it's still pre-14 minutes. Can't teleport onto that ward. AXIZ, they go for a deep invade. They try and take something, or rather, they try and punish Flawless as he comes out of his own jungle, but they find themselves in a 4v5, and they find themselves on the bad end of a horrible early game trade. And we talked about this composition being one that does come online early, that wants to fight around early dives and all of this stuff, and it has just not happened for them. This is, of course, how it came about, and Flawless walks up as the ultimate immediately coming in, but a quick Nautilus ult to disengage, and Gragas being on the front line too, walking down to that play, called out nice and early. AXIZ completely overestimate themselves and get taken apart.
Honestly, kind of felt like Halo, because it was a reach from AXIZ, diving a bit too far into the enemy.
Sorry, what was that a reference to?
I've got no idea.
Oh, man.
That's the next level. That's the next level. Referencing pop culture in ways that neither of you understand. That's what we're aiming for.
I think it's like, for the record, I am a huge Halo fan. I know exactly what that is, which is why it pains me so much. If you'd reference any other game but Reach, I'd have been like, God damn it, I have to reference that. But like, Reach was what I had a love-hate relationship with, because I loved it for the social aspect of it, but I just wished it was the original trilogy instead. Either way, we are now getting to the point where AXIZ were trying to put online, of course, their giant galaxy-killing weapon of all 5 ultimates hitting one target, and they have not gotten to a stable point in this game. They have started to fall apart. They're going to fall behind the curve of this game, and as much as I said, wow, they snowball so effectively, that works both ways. Burning Core, after taking that fight, are going to have themselves a lead at the 15-minute mark. They don't have to worry about fighting back from a deficit, which they have failed to do this split, and they're in a very comfortable position now after not really having to have done much.
Honestly, Flawless is looking like a weapon to surpass Metal Gear with this Gore Drinker. Chains landing in the mid lane onto Megaman, but responds with an Everfrost of his own.
When did you learn pop culture? When did this happen, Middlecart?
So full disclosure, I haven't played any Metal Gear name. All I know is that that's a quote, and that people, when you say that, they go, oh, that's Metal Gear.
It's to say like, wow, you've left me in phantom pain. Anyway, AXIZ, they find themselves
feeling real pain as Dicey jumps on top of him, but like I was saying, there isn't really too much damage to come through yet. A Burning Core are just
no way is he out.
And oh no, into the backline dive Sanctuary. It's actually 2 dead for Burning Core already. Yuhi trying to kite out on that backside, pulls himself to the back, but gets shot in the head. AXIZ, okay, you weren't meant to win this fight. Shadow Surge locking up Dice as well. Distortions himself away. And how the hell did AXIZ get 3 kills there?
But Burning Core did all the hard work. They'd done all the hard work. You'd get yourself a lead, and then for some reason, a lapse of judgment, you see Fujimoto and Flawless going in for an invade into the enemy jungle. And the last time we saw the red buff invade, we brought up that point saying, hey, it's kind of dangerous to do that, this composition. Vex can fly in from wherever. This time, it's post 14 minutes. You can teleport in too. That's insult to injury. And as much as the blast cone it's a very fun interaction. Sangchu has a flash to commit on his own way. He goes for a quick 1v2 against both bot laners, charges up that style rank. And the bad thing about Crit Zyra is that you don't come online as early as a Lethality Zyra. You don't have the ability to trade heavily back and forth, and doesn't get to take down the Samira, which they put in so much hard work to keep down in this early game. Suddenly 3 kills onto Sangchu. You need to be worried for Burning Core now in a game that we thought was kind of just lights out for AXIZ.
I mean, Burning Core definitely still in the advantage, but AXIZ proving that they can fight back, and I think that is more important than anything else. We talked about how important these few remaining games are. They need to win all 4 of them to keep their chances of playoffs alive, and whilst they are in a deficit, showing that little bit of steel, showing that little bit of grit is exactly what you need to do. Dicey potentially goes for the Magnet Storm instead. What a turnaround, but it will not be enough for AXIZ. A Swamp is taken out. Sangchu's going to be the next target, but dives into the backline, stays alive for so long, so much damage, traded back, and it's a disaster. It looks so good for AXIZ, but collateral damage takes them all out.
That is a fight-saving, potentially game-saving cask from Gragas. We are going to see a replay of that, and I want you to see what Rayfarki did to poor old Sangchu in that fight. It starts with Dicey turning around a catch onto him into whatever kind of engage he could, but Sangchu is punted incredibly far away, and as soon as he looks to re-engage, Fujimoto is on that AD carry. He doesn't get any chance to dive into that play, and as much as I hate seeing Rayfarki on the Gragas so often, I want to see him on more of the individual carry threats. That was an absurd team fight from Burning Core's top laner.
I tell you what, when he throws casts like that, when he plays team fights like that, I really don't care. Flawless now going to be jumped onto by Toltu, and that's a lot of damage thrown onto the Graves, as Swamp will be able to pick up the kill in just a moment, but it's already been traded back. The Hecarim's going to fall as well, and yeah, you take down Flawless, but you still end up dying. Sangchu is also being threatened here by Dice, as over the wall goes the Gragas, and Dicey will be forced to run as well.
He has flash, he has a cask.
Oh, that's just the Bomber ultimate taking them out. Megaman going to be the focus too. Burning Core, what are you even worrying about, man? Another clean fight.
I mean, Rayfarki rolls in, says Mac round, spinning up, drops the cask on for the kill on the Dicey, punts Megaman back, and the last 2 fights have utterly been the Rayfarki show. AXIZ going far too deep, and they're getting hugely disengaged.
Runs in, throws beverages at people, leaves, refuses to elaborate, and again, AXIZ trying to find something, trying to get an engage, but they underestimate how quickly Burning Core can respond.
Come on, AXIZ, get some effing kills as Gragas rolls up. And, I mean, again, AXIZ overestimate themselves. Rayfarki is such a nuisance in these fights. And as soon as Sangchu is out of the picture, realistically, who is dealing with Rayfarki? Answer is no one.
Yeah. You can't deal with the Gragas at that point in the game. Has opted for a bit more of a tank route, and with Sangchu being the only real relevant damage threat on the AXIZ side, he's going to be absolutely fine. TP invested to secure this Herald, but 19 minutes into the game, this isn't the big objective that you need to be getting at this stage.
So, of course, there is Soul Point already there for Burning Core. I'm actually not sure if I'd referenced that a little bit before, but there are objective bounties up for the side of AXIZ. You have a Herald, there are some low HP towers down the side lane, and you have a Herald to push through them. If you get to the point where you can take large sweeping trades, potentially that's an angle. Ult from the Sejuani.
Dice. Just playing around. Didn't overstep there, but Tulsa already taken very, very low. This Sejuani's meant to be an engage, Sean. You're not going to be engaging like that. Dice potentially caught out there, jumping over the wall, and Burning Core Just not willing to overstep as it stands. Flawless may have been caught, though, as he walks forward to alto the tower, but doesn't get taken low. Dicey actually gets taken out. That was a damage calculation that you failed. That was a flash calculation that you failed, Megaman, and you're going to pay for it with your life. 2 kills picked up for Burning Cool. They don't have a mid lane wave just yet, but Flawless diving over. Seems like he doesn't really care for his own life, but he knows that he is A-OK. Jumps back over.
He has a gore drinker, he's got a black cleaver, and he has not a care in the world. Flawless very quietly starting to rack up a lot of impactful fights on this Graves too. Overshadowed by the Kragus in a lot of ways. We've been talking about Ray Farkey to such a large degree, but don't sleep on the rest of Burning Core. And sadly, it feels like Sedrani has been utterly put to sleep in this game because it's just done so little for the side of AXIZ. Sat there at 0-2 and 3 and struggled to find any impact in this game.
Yeah, it's been a little bit bristle boring from Toltu, honestly. Hasn't been getting those huge ulti engages. Herald summoned in the mid lane. We'll take a decent chunk out of this tower, may even take it down, but what happens to AXIZ afterwards? It looks like they're all going to be cleaned up, but it's Dicey going back in for the engage. The feathers are thrown out to buy a bit more time from Yuhi. No one's started yet on the side of Burning Cores. That's already a 1-4 trade, and Megaman has got the reset. He misses the ultimate, though, and that means that it's going to be disastrous for AXIZ. They're trying to clean it up, and they may just be able to. Flawless somehow still alive, dueling up with Swamp on the other side. And if you weren't a million gold in the deficit, maybe you win that fight, AXIZ, but as it stands, you've been aced.
They've been aced, and the Gore Drinker at the end keeps Flawless alive, but such a hard fight to watch as an AXIZ watcher. Again, Dicey looking for the big engages, forces out the Xayah ult early. You think, okay, potentially this is the way to do it, but quick fingers on Yuhi gets him out of danger's path, and Megaman hits the first ult. This is great. Think, wow, potentially a way to turn this around, and I don't know who he's aiming for with this. I don't know, but that is a very poor ultimate from Megaman on the Vex. Would it have changed the fight completely? No, maybe not, but you look how little HP Flawless survives on at that point. It would have been something for AXIZ to walk away with instead of just a wiped fight.
It would have been good. You would have wanted to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there is no positive to missing that ult.
Associated with hitting your ult.
Because partly I'm sad, again, like, sometimes I'm slow to criticize players because I want to understand what they were doing. That one is just pointing your cursor in the wrong direction.
It's harsh, but it's fair.
And you have to be harsh on a team like AXIZ who have shown quite a few negative points in this split. Now, this was a team with low expectations. Again, I have to reiterate that. Sometimes it's good to put it back into perspective, but they were chasing playoffs, and you think that with Burning Core struggling, there was maybe an angle, and you'd hope to see a bit more drama in this split left for them, but feels like all the drama is the various ways that they can fail team fights in this game from a deficit, and oh my gosh, that is an Xmithia and a half.
That's just emblematic of how this game has really been going for Toltu and AXIZ as a whole. Megaman going to be caught out now. No Sejuani ultimate available. First kill of the fight is just way too easy, and now Burning Core are going to look to play it out. Sanctuary's diving into the back line, but the Inferno trigger doesn't do enough damage. It's going to be the Rel taken out. Going to be the Samira thrown back into the team while Flawless is just taking names on the backside. No one can kill this Graves, and he can kill anyone that he wants. It's been a carry performance from Flawless, and Burning Core may just look to end the game here.
AXIZ throw themselves into Burning Core on cooldown, and they don't hit their marks. They are anti-snowballed against. They don't get ahead in the game. They throw themselves into the fire, and they are well and truly burned. Burning Core, they pick up the easy fights. They somehow find themselves in a lost fight kind of in the early to mid game. You think, oh no, AXIZ have got the combo online. But that was the one real shining bit of hope for AXIZ, a bright spark for them. And besides that, it has been a dark night sky as they really struggle to find anything to work with.
Oh, your jungle is dark.
Oh gosh.
Terrors. Megaman goes golden to buy a little bit of time, and Swamp and Sanctuary roaming over will dissuade Dicey from assassinating that mid lane pick. We're going to get a replay of that fight. Beautiful hook from Fujimoto.
We just saw Megaman get burst out, not quite to his death, but on live. But then in the replay, we see how quickly they were removed from this fight. So we highlighted the mid lane matchup in terms of one discrepancy that Burning Core could play around, and actually looking at the scoreboards coming out of this 6-0 and 10 dice has dismantled his lane opponent. Not necessarily as a one-man act, so Mega Man has been diving into the fights and been punished for it, but this mid laner of DICE has turned up to play today.
Yeah, it's been an immaculate performance from him. 6-0 and 10. 10 stacks on the Medjai's in inventory. Hopefully we can see 25 before this game is done. Swamp running very, very fast at Ray Farkey, but the Gragas is particularly tanky at this point.
Oh, this is
Shadows kind of just goes wide as
Okay.
Dicey finds the engage onto the people that you actually need to get it onto, but Flawless is somehow still alive. Yuhi kiting back as well. The Ocean Soul just keeps him alive. It keeps the sustain going. It's a triple kill for Yuhi as the Penta is stolen away from him by a combination of his top laner and his mid, but I don't think he's going to mind too much, as it's going to be a victory road for Burning Core as they walk down mid to take the game.
And Milko, okay, that was me getting hit by the Sejuani ult because it was that far off target again. Toltu could not close down the target's Burning Core. It takes one more fight for them to close out the game, but they will secure themselves playoffs.
Off the back of brilliant performances from Flawless and Dice, carry from Yuhi as well. All the pieces coming together for Burning Core. And that secures themselves the win and playoffs.
It's a bit of a sad